Graphs and sheets to mid logic whatever feeds. By virtue of an object's mass alone, no attraction to its center was ever shown. Mathematically,
this is PGA Hoaxed World, Gods in the Sky. This particular track mastered by 24K.
Outer space you get, and they fell like 500 years yet to show you a spinning ball with water on it while it delves shooting an elliptical orbit. Avoiding A360 pan at all cost, moon landing dead or unfortunately lost, unable to evidently prove the ball. That's the mechanics of the force wall.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. New computer parts are on the way, so if the video drops off, you do have continuity on the audio stream. And I'm not even going to acknowledge it because who cares about technical problems? That gets old after a while. But I've rectified the situation. We're just waiting on a delivery. Michael Cervantes says, the best anti-MSM show on the internet. Well, yeah, anti-media was a term I started to use before. I thought, are we anti-media? But we're not really against it in that sense. More of a counter-mainstream media perspective, because the mainstream media has hoarded itself out to the governments of the world, and it has a monolithic voice, quote, globally. So yes, you can say anti. However, as soon as we started using the phrase anti-media, a quote, anti-media individual held a Fox News station in a hostage situation. It was some guy getting back at his ex, but they said an anti-media shooter. And I thought, I had not heard that phrase before, and they said it was Trump's anti-media rhetoric. Trump ignores question on anti-media rhetoric. Days after the shooting at the Pittsburgh synagogue and a mail bomb targeting CNN, Trump escalated anti-media rhetoric. Anyway, that phrase was kind of contaminated, so I thought, I'm going to abandon that one. But we do offer the only PSYOP-free news source, and that's true. And by PSYOP-free, it's not that other people are intentionally playing into it, but a lot of people just have these presuppositions, like this event was real as advertised, that really happened, this really happened. And if you connect those dots and that forms your views, well, you might be just very misinformed, but well-intentioned. Well, we're not misinformed here. We're not confused. We know very well what is and isn't real, so we don't have to pretend. We are communicating above the heads of the misinformed and the MSM itself, and they obviously hate it, but we're not giving. In fact, we're expanding. Let me just bring this up really quick. If you go to fakeworld.news, or just go to infiniteplane.media, you'll find it here. We're introducing something that the world very badly needs right now. A tabloid. A reliable print tabloid to cover the fake world news accurately. It's coming soon. It's scheduled for all of 2022, but the inaugural issue will be out on the 13th of December. Pre-sales are being taken right now. So this is going to be a digital and print tabloid, and I'll probably have it distributed through all of the ebook providers, Kindle, Barnes & Nobles, etc. Top shelf conspiratainment, mass media deconstruction, breaking news, investigative journalism, memes, art, music reviews, interviews. We have it all. We have dozens of people eager to write for this thing in touch with me already, so it's a go, and it's probably going to eliminate a lot of the problems we've had keeping this channel afloat. We have technical issues, gremlins, micro EMP bursts. Benton says, do you think Awakened Souls was talking about this? Be more specific. Awakening Souls, I believe you're referring to the Canadian, one of the two of the witnesses from Revelations, if you believe them. Text message notifications will resume in about a week. I used up all of the units. And this is what I mean. When we don't have 100% of the resources that I would like to have to be running. I mean, we should be on more platforms than we are. We should have open phones 5 nights a week. But that's going to happen in 2022. And we're not all that far off. But I'm doing my best to make it happen like today, yesterday. So text alerts will resume, but otherwise you get them if you're in Patreon or Twitter, or if you follow any of my blogs, really. We kind of blast it. But anyway, text message alerts are probably the most effective because we lose a YouTube channel per week on average. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. Phones are open, 833-311-1984. I want to go ahead and start off with some voicemail. So go ahead and just randomly. This is from, there's quite a few here. This one's from a couple of days ago.
Hey, Tim. I seem to recall, and maybe I'm not remembering it right, at the end of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they convince everybody that the world's going to be destroyed, and they build these ships, and they tell that they need the most important people to get on the ships first, and they load all the middlemen on the planet into the ships, and then they shoot them into the sun, and everybody goes happily ever after on the planet. So kind of a positive little twist there. Have a good one. Thanks a lot for everything. Bye.
All right, I appreciate that. I have not heard that. I mean, there are some connections with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think even the author's birthday is probably March 11th, Pandemic Day. And anyway, if you didn't know, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the book, is encoded into everything having to do with space travel. And not just in a cutesy way, a nerdy way with Elon Musk, but on a much deeper level. Specifically the number 42, which has meaning that extends beyond this particular book. And the book's about an AI god who tells him that the answer to everything is 42. And that number may refer to, or seems to refer to, the worship of Saturn, the god, weirdly enough. But it's not just Musk, it's all of them. You can see it written into the storyline of all their major launches or PR stunts. The Tesla Roadster had "Don't Panic" on the glove box, and that was the glove compartment. Don't panic, which is a reference to that book. And by the way, the movie version opens when the Earth is about to be destroyed, and it's surrounded by these cube-shaped craft, like a bunch of cubes surrounding the Earth, if you can imagine this. And all at once, they basically nuke it. So the Earth gets destroyed by a bunch of cube-shaped craft. And I thought, that's kind of interesting, because the last time I checked, Elon Musk was busily filling the skies with CubeSats. And do we really know what he's putting up there? It could be a bunch of kinetic weapons. It could be a bunch of nukes. But what are the odds? And the whole theory or storyline behind the car going to space, I think, is don't panic is the world's going to be destroyed, but you're saved. Don't panic. So the stunt of sending the car to Mars is pretty much a way of saying that the rich are going to buy their way out of here after the coming catastrophe. Also, by the way, the number 42 is significant to Jeff Bezos, who has built a clock. He had a clock built in a mountainside in Texas, and he spent $42 million. Think about that, 42. Why 42? This all ties into the storyline of the man who fell to Earth. Look, we talk about the space popes a lot and where they come from, because they're all amalgamations, composites. Elon Musk is a little bit of Tony Stark, a little bit of Willy Wonka, a little bit of Daddy Werner von Braun. And I think they threw in, there's a few other characters. Like I said, he's a composite. We can get into that. Evar says, I wish I could bankroll you, Tim. Well, all of our patrons do. Benton, appreciate that. Another one of my patron supporters. Yeah, Patreon is basically a way that I can send out live stream notifications and directly link people to the most recent archives, because we have not had a continuous collection of archives anywhere outside of that. Art of Thinking Out Loud Live Common Sense Analytics says Drake is mentioned the number 42 in every song he's done lately. Well, okay, the number 42 and the number 33 are equally significant in the meta script, and I'm not even talking about their meanings, gematria, adding, subtracting. However, there's a specific usage for these things. Even the guy that ran over those people the other day, his initials, DB. You'll see that a lot. D4B2. David Bowie, 42. The man who fell to Earth. So you have this constant connection between, you could say, Satan in a way. I mean, I don't like to conflate Satan and Saturn, because you get these myths and these names kind of mixed up and conflated. It's not even accurate. But as far as the symbolic system, the common theme is this. 42 represents falling or death, or the god of Saturn, the god of night, the underworld, whereas 33 tends to associate with things that are rising. Christ, light, the sun rising, and it's all encoded you would think this was just a bunch of coincidences, but there are so many. So, for example, Steve Jackson, 42, he was the twin of George Floyd at that event, the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin thing, which was really just a play. Western chauvinism was making it so George couldn't breathe. The reason why he was suffocated for 8:46 is because 9/11 started at 8:46, which they timed with the rising of Mercury that day. But 8:46, they were 9/11ing America. That's why Derek Chauvin's hearing was on 9/11. That's why they released him after he posted bail at 11:22 a.m. from Hennepin County. 11:22 is an Oswald reference. I mean, this thing is deeply and richly encoded. There's no reason to think that George Floyd is dead at all. I mean, unless you're just going to make an argument from ignorance, because there is plenty of evidence to show the whole thing was theatrical. I mean, those two guys worked together. Besides, the thing again was all play. And this is the key point, the sun set at 8:46 on 5/25/2020 in the Twin Cities. Twin Cities, a reference to the Twin Towers, another 9/11 reference, but there's your 8:46 again. And look into the 8:46 movement and what the comedian Dave Chappelle had to say about it, that number. It's very significant in the world stage, and it shows you a common author behind all of these psyops. But the sun setting at 8:46 references the death of Floyd after the 8:46. And what you had there was the death of the sun. The sun sets. So the symbolic killing of the Sun King was what we were witnessing. It was a ritual, much like the killing of Kennedy, who, by the way, I mentioned, for example, I just mentioned a second ago that Chauvin was released at 11:22 a.m., an Oswald reference. Well, you know, George Floyd was 46, the age of Kennedy. I mean, this is a very well-engineered event, or it was. Not a coincidence at all that... Here we go. Fox News just posted this. Catholic University has a painting depicting George Floyd as Jesus. It's described as heretical and blasphemous. Fascinating. Now, the "I can't breathe" phrase is actually an anagram for a better China. And this all ties in, I believe, to the Marxist revolution. But "I can't breathe" is sort of an indictment against the oppression of Western chauvinism, the police, the environment being choked by capitalism, aka climate change. Our atmosphere is being destroyed. They're imposing climate lockdowns in some parts of India because they can't breathe. Even at the Astro World event where nobody actually died, the eyewitnesses, the crisis actors, were saying, people said, "I can't breathe." That was all just code. And it has been this whole time. Yeah, nobody died at Astro World, and I can prove that with one simple fact. And you have to look at the video, Escape Plan, that came out a few days before the event. And in that video, at 1 minute and 40 seconds, and it's less than a second, you got to really catch it. Travis Scott is wearing a shirt that gives away the game. As in, he's wearing the shirt from the Pearl Jam Rock Slide Festival 20 years prior. It has a figure 8, looks like a CERN with an eye in it, kind of like a CERN portal, just like their stage. So even the visuals of it, it looked like his stage. But the Rock Slide Festival had 50,000 attendees, and 9 were crushed to death. Now, I have to assume that's probably fake as well, but my point is, Astro World Fest had 50,000, 9 crushed to death, and he's wearing a shirt from that event. That tells you how coordinated this is. Slave Rescue Hound says George Floyd is a made-up character. Oh, no doubt. And there's a few different areas. I mean, there's some attorney in Corpus Christi who said that he died a few years ago. There's plenty to indicate, though, he might actually be a more well-known actor, wearing or having a bit of a disguise, but I don't know. At this point, it's just a crisis actor living at Crisis Actor Island. He was a friend of Derek Chauvin, and their names give it all away. You have the symbolic roles, but the name Chauvin, it's Western chauvinism. Derek means hangman. the etymology of that name is a hangman who hanged 3,000. And 3,000 is a 9/11 number, if you think about it. Derek Chauvin, 9/11 to America. 9/11, they have a hearing. And on that day, since it was the 19th anniversary of 9/11, everybody had 846s, out there. At 846, though, and it's for two different reasons. You had Floyd's team with Benjamin Crump with 846 on their masks, a reference to George. But the rest of the country were out in their front lawns waving their flags at 846 for 9/11. Like these symbols were overlapping. And by the way, Benjamin Crump is also representing the people from Astro World Fest. So you see the same medical examiners and you see the same attorneys representing the psyops, and it kind of gives it away. That's really what got me looking at Kenosha very closely. I'm open to the possibility that maybe the shooting was real, but at this point, just the involvement of Lynn Wood, who was the attorney of the John Benet Ramsey's parents and a few others, just too many things there, too questionable. Okay, let us continue. Slave Rescue Hound says George Floyd movie was paid for by China. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean by the anagram "a better China." And you know what? When I first analyze the event, because I look at it like it's a movie. In fact, that's actually served pretty well because we see that there are, in fact, evidences of stagecraft. And it's so predictable. But I remember specifically at the scene, you see a red dragon. And I thought, seems like a China reference, but I don't see anything Chinese there. And then he's like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. I mean, the whole thing's very well encoded. There's also the involvement of a few other shady characters connected to it. And one other point, though, it should be emphasized that the first building to burn during the riots was a factory that had been there for 33 years. It was a factory that creates life-sized training dolls for EMTs. Training dolls that are going through respiratory distress. You can intubate them. They have functioning innards. So, and they all happen to look like George Floyd. And they can customize their appearances. So a lot of people thought they saw a dummy in the ambulance and when they were moving him up, and I think so. And I also have a report. I have a comment from someone, and I'm trying to verify this, that this person said that they walked on the scene, or they know someone who walked onto the scene, and they were told they were filming a police training video, and that there was a dummy present. Yeah, Sigma 7 is the company you need to look into. Also worth pointing out, sure, is that George Floyd had 4 funerals, golden caskets, pulled by horses, just like you would expect from somebody representing the Sun King or Sun God, Osiris. Sun God's always pulled by horses, but the golden casket, 4 funerals paid for by Floyd Mayweather, who on the 1-year anniversary of the cemetery of these funerals had that boxing match with Logan Paul. Just so weird, but these names are all very significant. I was mentioning the meaning behind Derek Chauvin, but even George Floyd. Floyd is referenced, it's kind of foreshadowed in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And this is why I was talking about looking at these things like it's a film. And that's kind of how we've been analyzing. What we're doing isn't really hate speech. What we're doing here is we're critiquing the mass media presented worldview. The one that's officially like the state religion now. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue. Erica Bear said they moved those dolls to the COVID wards. Oh yeah, this whole pandemic has wreaked havoc on the rubber doll population. I mean, how many of those have you seen? Rubber dolls that they put on the news. By the way, the guy who ran over the people at that event, I think it's probably fake. One of the things that we saw, shoes everywhere. This is one of the common things we see at all the psyops, piles of shoes. I brought this up yesterday. I should probably bring it up one more time in case any of you missed it. January 3rd is the birthday of both Greta Thunberg and Kyle Rittenhouse. January the 3rd, 2003, those two brats were brought into this world simultaneously, and they each went to opposite ends of the political spectrum, and they became equally well known and equally polarizing. Nothing to see here. I mean, what is it? Is it evidence of astrology? Destiny? or scripting, lifetime actors. Dirk Diggler in the comments says Floyd, actor, porn star. True. I would say the fact is he was involved in a psychological operation, and it was given away in the original photos. The very first pictures of George Floyd, if you search for him, the very first one always had him in a suit next to a mirror, or rather a reflective glass on a door, and right behind him was a poster that had COVIDs all over it. You know, big old COVIDs, which he had it, by the way. And it had, I mean, the design looked like a big COVID ball. But then it was a poster for Corona, Corona Light. Light is a very Masonic term. And of course, Corona, the crown, all these symbols are very important. But the fact is, he had a Corona beer there. And that picture, of course, was the first one to show up. No coincidence. The other picture, he was in front of a brick wall. Very Masony, at a minimum. Tominoid says Pink Floyd's brick wall plus breathe and breathe in the air. Right. Well, the I Can't Breathe was put into our collective consciousness throughout 2020 with the Floyd event, the masks, the COVID, the ventilators, and then you had the, like I was mentioning earlier, the environmentalists are now using that term as well. That we can't breathe because of this. And it's all code for this revolution. And speaking of revolution, there was a Mars base, you know, where they prepare people to go to Mars and they have them all living in close quarters, like a simulation. And it's basically a prison, but I guess, I mean, that's what's so strange. And I've said this before, that the greatest accomplishment of the space program has been to convince the capitalists that progress lies in being propertyless, uniformed slaves in some far-off gulag. They sold the freedom-loving capitalists on gulag life as progress. This is from Futurism.com. Simulated Mars base got rebellious, worrying the scientists. One of the things astronauts need to contend with when we colonize Mars is isolation. After all, they'll be alone with their crew members for months or years at a time. Plus, it could get even worse if the Martian situation occurs and somebody ends up alone on the red planet. During a recent long-term isolation experiment on a simulated Mars base, they found that participants get distant and rebellious at times. So they're looking at more than a dozen of these experiments where they have people in a simulated Mars base. And apparently things tend to fall apart, they get a little rebellious, and it kind of got me thinking. Like it says here, it says ultimately, it's probably better to communicate more with mission control. Maybe later we can worry about a Martian astronaut revolution. Well, my point about the achievement of the space program and getting the capitalists to see giving away everything and leaving the worldly nature of their lives behind, the fact that they got this to be seen as some sort of a progress, as a step forward, is actually a revolution. It's subversion. Just like environmentalism is there to make you feel bad about being a consumer, same thing, the space program, I think, is a stalking horse for a communist revolution. So no, the Mars is already inherently a communist revolution. If they get you there, you're in your commune. You're going to be a potato farmer. And now they're saying it's going to be made out of astrocrete, which again is a brick made out of blood. Yep, blood and Mars dust. Scientists suggesting mixing astronaut blood with Mars dust to form a glue that can be used to build. Apparently it's a stronger concrete than what we have here. It's a special concrete. Blood, sweat, tears, urine, Martian dust could be a magic formula for building on the red planet. You know, what's interesting is the voicemail was about how a lot of people were sent out into space and sent to the sun as some kind of a sacrifice. And that's kind of what this looks like. It looks like a sacrifice. It also looks like, you know, you give yourself up for the community and they turn you into a brick in the wall. Very strange, very ominous. I think it's very Soylent Green. All right, let us continue. We're going to go through the voicemails. I had a few more I wanted to listen to. Again, you can leave voicemails or you can call 833-311-1984. So this is one from, I think, 2 days ago. And optimally, we will have live open phones multiple times per week. We had a few, like I said, gremlins, possibly micro EMP bursts, but mostly minor technical issues. But nothing's changed. I mean, we've learned how to deal with the censorship. I was talking about this earlier. If they had just left us alone, we'd be so much more containable and constrainable. But essentially, we've become Godzilla. We've kind of mutated beyond any possibility of censoring what we're doing. And now we're going into print. So again, I'll mention, if you go to fakeworld.news, you can pre-order the first issue of our tabloid, which is going to really take off mostly in 2022. Okay, here we go. This is another voicemail.
Tim, take a closer look at this Waukesha SUV Rams crowd story. It's really smelling funny to me because I'm seeing that within like 24 hours these GoFundMe pages have gone up, mostly put up there by this Milwaukee dance team and a group called the Dancing Grandmas or Dancing Grannies, and they're really pushing for the money. Whenever I see fundraising, GoFundMe pages go up so soon, before the bodies are even cold, immediately my antennas go up. So check it out. Talk to you later.
Awesome tip there from Lynn, and hopefully we'll get Lynn and others to call in here very soon once everything's working perfectly. JD Dig says Lynn should call in. I agree. I'll be reaching out. In fact, I have a lot of interesting things planned for right after this weekend. It's a holiday weekend here, but I'll be speaking with Seek the Truth 101, aka Rambo, and others. So the SUV attack, fakeable? Yes. Likely fake? I'm starting to think so. And I find it very conspicuous when you look at the timing of it, because when Kyle Rittenhouse posted bail on the same day a year prior, there was a simultaneous psyop. It was a mass shooting at the Mayfair Mall. MM, as many will point out, would indicate 33, which is their hoax code. And now you have this thing in Waukesha, Wisconsin, WW, another 33. But the fact is, on the anniversary of his exoneration and the anniversary of his posting bail, you have these psyops that correspond with it. And it just seems like a way that the media lashes out. Kind of like they just happened to catch a guy named Kyle Rittenhouse for illegal materials involving children. And this was in Florida. And it's like, wait, another person named Kyle Rittenhouse just happens to get in trouble, giving fodder to his haters to just read the headline and say, Kyle Rittenhouse guilty of this crime. It seems like one of these stories they make up. Like this person does not exist.com. P-Trip0103 says Rambo is good. Yeah, whenever I get these guests on, I'll make sure I post links to their Patreons and their Twitter accounts, because there's a few Twitter accounts that you need to follow if you want to remain on the cutting edge of deep fakery, which is far beyond phone apps. And it's been used on all of us since before we were born. We really just don't know who in the public sphere was just a rubber face. I mean, it's the truth that they were using Hollywood special effects long before digital. I would almost say that the digital deepfake and the emphasis on its prevalence today is pure distraction from the fact that they've been deepfaking us for a long time. Okay, I have another voicemail I want to get to here. Art of Thinking Out Loud Live Common Sense Analytics says the rapper Moneybagg Yo has a popular song called Waukesha 2 right now. Fascinating. Yeah, we have to look at these connections. Like when Astro World was going down, the music video tied into it. Then you had Astro from UB40, famous reggae pop band, dying. Coincidental timing, probably. But then you have a few more coincidences, and it starts to look like, no, this is a bigger script, and they're connecting things. Okay, I think I have another voicemail here. Now, as a rule, I don't say something's fake unless I have a reason to think so. There is a methodology here. You can't just say, I just call everything fake, because that's to me, that's an argument from ignorance. It's kind of lazy, and you can't really claim to know more about the situation than the person who's actually studied it. And I don't think that ignorance is an excuse here. I think it's more important to say extraordinary claims require commensurate evidence. And we're not asking a whole lot. Well, apparently we are. I mean, has anybody here yet seen a convincing video of the